Hey, I'm on surprise, surprise live. And like I said in the topic, it's vitamin D. And what I wanted to actually address is a couple of factors about vitamin D. Vitamin D is actually a hormone the body is supposed to make. It's meant to make vitamin D. So I always say that if the body's meant to make it, you don't want to take it. Now, that said, you want to use caution with that idea. I mean, really, I'm calling myself out here. But the fact is that if you are low in vitamin D, then you want to make sure that you take it. And if you're not using essential oils on a daily basis, what I mean by that is like not necessarily in diffusers or because you feel like using one, but really intentionally using it to promote wellness, not just better health, but actually wellness. When you're actually beginning to use that every single day, there's absolutely no need to take vitamin D. And here's why. So when I was first diagnosed with cancer, they obviously did all the blood work and determined that I was very low in vitamin D, which really shocked me because I spent a great deal of time outdoors, many hours outdoors every day. So I was getting the sunshine and I was not producing the vitamin D. As I said, the body's meant to actually produce it. And as I was going through this process, they put me on very high dose of vitamin D that after 6 weeks, my blood levels came up. So the doctor was pleased and just put me on, I want to say she put me on like 2,500 milligrams a day, I think is what she had me taking, D3. And I did do that for a while because I wanted to make sure I was going through cancer treatment. I wanted to make sure that I was able to maintain because I had done some inquiring with, at that point, I had 7 different doctors. And so I started asking around because what I do understand, and the reason I pause like that is because I wanted to say, I do understand that the body has to produce it, but at the same time, just because you're producing it does not mean you're using it. That is the part that I want to emphasize. Just because the body produces it does not mean it's actually using the vitamin D. There's many purposes to vitamin D. However, when the body is stressed, the stress response is now activated. It inhibits the vitamin D receptor from picking up the vitamin D and thereby now diminishes your ability to get calcium into the cells. Calcium as a mineral is an excitatory mineral, meaning it actually enhances immune activity or it activates immune activity. Then when it's not in the cells. And so vitamin D, what it does is it takes it into the cells and allows magnesium to actually do what it's supposed to do. So there's a lot of mechanics that are happening here. My supposition is that when the vitamin D receptor cannot transport it into the cells, the body will slow down on the production of it because too much vitamin D is going to be toxic. It's a fat soluble vitamin. And so to take it leads me to question what are we actually doing to our system? Because first of all, if you're taking something that the body is supposed to make, in this case, you're actually taking a hormone, you've now informed the hormonal system, the brain, to alter its production of other hormones. So you're continuing to maintain an imbalance in the hormonal system. That's my proposition. That's my hypothesis, is that as long as the stress response is active, that you're not able to produce, well, you're producing it, but you're not able to transport it in, the body's going to stop making it because there's too much in it and it's a protection mechanism. And as I said, it's going to be toxic. So if you take vitamin D and your body cannot use it, then it's going to store it as a potential toxin or become toxic because it's going to store it in the fat tissue. And it's going to also maintain an imbalance in the hormonal system. Now, when I was talking with the doctors and I inquired about, so if you can test it in the blood, how do you know that the body's actually using it? And every single one of them were like, we don't know. And like I said, this was 7 different doctors. And I've subsequently gone out and asked, again, other doctors. Nobody seems, they cannot. I don't want to say that nobody seems, we cannot actually test that part. I mean, you cannot test, you really have to get the stress response down. The only way to know, the only thing is the whole idea here is to get your body to produce it. And to get your body to produce it, you've got to be in a relaxed state. You've got to be able to get into that rest and digest state in order to produce it. So in my case, I lived a very chronically stressed life, as many people have, emotionally as well as environmentally. And I can see why I wasn't producing the vitamin D. So I did what I did, took the vitamin D for a while, and then I stopped, because through my cancer treatments, just through the diagnosis alone, that was the impetus I needed to understand what the heck is actually going on, because I'd done all the right things. I'd had the right diet. Eating the plant-based diet, my diet was clean. I was physically active, spending time outdoors, doing all the things that they tell us to do. And I still came up with this diagnosis. I'm not going to go as far as to say it doesn't run in my family, but it doesn't. Nevertheless, I shifted, like I said, it was the impetus for the way I practice and talk about oils. Again, because when I went through treatment, they were unable to get all the cancer out. When I go into the surgery, they were unable to get all the cancer out. And so when I went through treatment, I had to learn how to integrate oils safely with what I was doing. Subsequently, I've altered significantly the way I use oils, as well as the way I allow myself to rest. It's an integration of the mechanics, meaning the oils as the tools, but realizing that, what am I using them for if I'm going to try to override them with constant stress or stress-related thoughts and interpretations? And so I really began starting to use oils more as a way of connecting with my higher self, is how I would say it. Yes, I do use them for symptoms, but I also saw them as a means of a higher communication. They really cleaned up. This is interesting now that I'm saying this. A few years ago, actually quite a few years ago, I made the statement to somebody. I was talking about oils and promoting my business, and I said what they actually do is they clean up communication. And the person I was speaking to was in the UK. There was two people, and they both looked at me and go, people aren't going to know what that means. You know what? And I dumbed it down. I stopped saying it. But the bottom line is essential oils clean up the communication. They clean up the cellular communication. They clean up the communication with your higher self. They really help establish that rest and digest state. It's not about using oils to relieve anxiety and stress. It's about how do we clean up that communication to actually understand how to take care. They elevate your self-awareness with a capital S. They elevate your self-awareness to become clear about what it is you specifically need. And in doing so, the reason I'm even on here talking about vitamin D is because I haven't taken vitamin D supplements several years now. And I keep going in and getting tested, for routine checkups. And the beautiful thing is my vitamin D levels are up. Yes, I spend time outdoors, and somebody actually said to me just recently, well, you spend a lot of time outside. That's true, but I've spent time outdoors for most of my life. And the fact that I didn't have vitamin D, or I wasn't producing vitamin D, 6-7 years ago, and now I'm producing it, says a lot. It says a lot about the hypothesis that I mentioned, that we don't produce it when we're in the stress response. So, that said, I share with you the idea that you can elevate your vitamin D levels. You can really help your system become well. You can really help to stabilize the hormonal system by using the oils to help clean up the communication, and really begin to encourage your body to produce the vitamin D. To me, that is really what this is all about. It's about how do we reset the system so that it'll actually do what it's designed to do. And I, for years, ran around thinking that I could just use them as remedies, and they didn't do anything for me. It was when I was willing to allow them to clean up the communication within me that I was able to bear witness to the results. So I wanted to share that little bit of wisdom that I've lived, and I hope it does you some good. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments, or you're welcome to message me as well. Take care. Have an exquisite evening.